This is the Defenders podcast on TV Podcast Industries, and we're talking about What If Episode 2. What if T'Challa became Starlord?
How exactly did you stop Thanos, the Mad Titan, from decimating half of the universe?
Oh, no. I'm a big enough man to admit when I'm wrong. T'Challa here showed me there was more than one way to reallocate the universe's resources.
Sometimes the best weapon in your arsenal is just a good argument.
Aye, aye, Commander. Although I still assert my plan was not without its merits.
Jeez. Pretty sure it's still just genocide, big guy.
And I'm pretty sure it's efficient.
Welcome back, fellow Defenders, to our second episode, looking at and discussing the What If animated series from Marvel Studio. What if T'Challa became Starlord and sorted out space with all his diplomatic skills? Yes, I am one of your What If hosts, John.
I'm one of your other hosts, Derek.
And I am Chris, posing the question, what if we got this episode title right?
Yes, that would be a leap of amazingness, I guess.
I know we're recording this episode just the day before episode 1 drops on Disney Plus, and they've advertised the episode as What If Peggy Carter became the first Avenger, which was not a title we guessed last week on our podcast about episode 1. So we're probably not going to get the episode 2 title right either. And unfortunately, this episode doesn't even have the credits in it, so it doesn't even tell us who the writer of the episode or director of the episode is. We don't know 100% who the exact cast are, but we can guess which ones are the actual members of the MCU and who might be being played by other people.
We can definitely guess, but there is going to be one or two we get wrong, because I know there will be one or two that you're like, there is just a voiceover actor who has his, let's say, M'Baku down to a T. And you're just like, okay, well, congratulations. I now hate you because you proved me wrong.
It is. It's like, fellow Defenders, join us into the journey, into the unknown, as we speculate wildly about who said what,
Exactly.
and who wrote what, and who directed what in What If. What if this was directed by Quentin Tarantino?
It could be.
Written by some
Quentin
famous
Tarantino.
writer.
But we're not here to talk about what ifs of the directors. We are here to talk about episode 2 of What If.
Yes, that is true. We're going to be getting into our spoiler-filled discussion about episode 2 of What If. Before we do, please, if you're new to the Defenders podcast here on TV Podcast Industries, please pop on over to the website so you can subscribe to the podcast on any good or evil podcast player of your choice. Head on over to tvpodcastindustries.com. We also love getting in the feedback, thoughts, comments, theories, observations, put downs, you name it. Send in any of those to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com, or you can join our Facebook group and go to any of the specific episode spoiler posts that we do and comment underneath that post. Just head on over to facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries.
Do we want to jump in to the episode details? Derek, who gave us what?
I'd love to tell you. What I do know is, once again, executive producers of the show are Bryan Andrews, A.C. Bradley, Brad Winderbaum with Kevin Feige, and the head writer for the show is A.C. Bradley. Likely, she has written this episode as well as the first one. I know she writes the third one, but unfortunately I don't know the director for this episode at the moment, but I'm sure our fellow Defenders can tell us, and we'll probably know when the episode comes out on Disney Plus. But John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for the episode?
Sure.
And please say, I'd love to tell you.
I didn't watch it.
Oh no.
I'm speculating. What if we watch this episode?
No, I will tell you, I did watch this episode. I loved the one all about Agent Carter becoming Captain Carter. Oh, we've already done that. Yeah. Oh, what if John got very confused? Well, here you go, fellow Defenders. But on with the synopsis show for episode 2. A small choice can change the universe. It's 1988, and in Wakanda, the young and curious Prince T'Challa chooses to leave the nation's protective shield. Unfortunately, an alien team of space pirates known as the Ravagers have chosen to land at the same coordinates. Mistaking the young prince for the human son of a being known as Ego, they abduct the boy and take him into the galaxy. Now an adult, T'Challa Starlord is notorious throughout the galaxy for his adventures, stealing from the rich to give to the poor, alongside his adoptive father Yondu and his crew of Ravagers. But he's been told Wakanda was destroyed and his family killed back on Earth. Following a successful job on Morag, Starlord returns not only with an Infinity Stone, but with a new crew member, Korath the Pursuer. As they celebrate their success at a bar, with Thanos, the sometimes Mad Titan, Kraglin and Taserface, Nebula comes to T'Challa with a proposition for a heist on the planet Nowhere, to steal the Embers of Genesis from the fearsome galactic crime boss, the Collector. Slipping past the Black Order and infiltrating the Collector's collection while searching for the Embers, T'Challa comes across a Wakandan ship and discovers that Yondu has lied to him about his family's death. At the same time, Nebula seemingly betrays T'Challa and the Ravagers to pay off an old debt she has to the Collector. Locked up on Nowhere, things are awkward between T'Challa and Yondu, but T'Challa is taken away to be prepared for collection by the Collector, just as Nebula's double cross plays out. As the Ravagers escape, Yondu and T'Challa fight the Collector, employing the sticky fingers tactic to defeat him and face justice from his assistant Karina and all of his other collected pieces from across the galaxy. After escaping, Yondu and Star-Lord sort out their differences, and T'Challa takes his adopted space family to meet his family in Wakanda. Elsewhere, in a Dairy Queen in Missouri, a young employee is mopping the floor. As the door opens, a man-shaped living planet called Ego comes for his son, Peter Quill.
We spoke in the last episode about the possibilities that can be in the What If universe. Wow, the writers for this episode really went on a run with what if there's a small change to the universe that changes the entire galaxy, didn't they?
Definitely. This felt like it had a lot more changes than episode 1, but really significant.
Yeah.
I mean, just a kind of multiply effect, that happened here with the change. But potentially as well, interestingly, that while certain big threats have been averted, maybe there is still one that will take place within this universe, this timeline and reality. So yeah, I mean, this was really, really good. I must say I loved this episode. Much preferred it to the first one, but I think the first one had its own reasons for just kind of introducing the concept for a very well-known part of the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
But this really, I think, took with that and multiplied it out, which was really good.
Agreed. This was a continuation, even better than the first, and it cemented the ripple effect or the butterfly flapping its wing effect, which one small change just exponentially grows and grows and grows. And we'll get into some of those massive ripples, trying to catch all of the huge amount of Easter eggs across every aspect of this show, this episode. I was just blown away, and it's going to be a dream for the IGNs and the Nerdists and the Den of Geeks, because it pulls so much from the comic books in terms of, well, we could do this, and they've gone to a point where it is so fun probably for these writers, because they were probably able to pitch pretty much anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a story that came out on the day of recording, where there's an upcoming Spider-Man episode apparently, and one of the original pitched ones was a different what if from the comic books, which is what if the spider bite turns Peter Parker into a spider.
Right.
And they basically pushed back on it, and they wrote the whole episode, and it was too horror based. It was too body horror. It was basically The Fly,
Right.
the film, but in an animated format with a PG-13. And I was like, yeah, but I would love to read that script.
Yeah, a bit like Man-Bat or something, maybe from DC.
I think we do have a Spider-Man in the Spider-Verse that is an actual spider. I'm sure there is one in comics.
Oh, there is.
Well.
There's many.
Yeah.
This is the first aspect of them really flexing and thinking their creative muscles by taking what was the original storylines and then just going, okay, well, if we change this one thing, how does that affect this?
Yeah.
So I was completely enthused by this.
Yeah,
Excellent.
Definitely. Like, I mean, I also just thought that, I felt in the first episode, a lot of the motivations of what happened stayed the same as well, even though things had changed, where it felt here that people changed as well, more dramatically in that, you know, or at least earlier than they say did in the movies. And I think for me, that kind of was certainly encapsulated with Yondu, actually, that he sets about sort of and buys into what T'Challa is saying here, and runs with it. So I thought that was kind of interesting as well.
Yeah, well, let's get into our top three, where we'll talk about those in a bit more detail. We mentioned in last week's episode, we're covering the show a little bit differently. We're going to talk about the elements that we've seen before, so what Marvel Cinematic Universes they're taking from, what movies they're taking from, and TV shows they're taking from. That's where we're starting this time. What if we've seen this before is our first point. The way we said it in last week's episode was the two elements that were being adjusted really were Captain America, the First Avenger, and the one-shot Agent Carter. Those are the only things really being incorporated in here. And part of the reason that both of you guys are talking about the amount of impacts we're having here is this one small change that we see in this episode affects, 5 movies, maybe 6 movies across the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We're talking Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 and 2, obviously.
Yeah.
Black Panther, by the fact that T'Challa isn't there to be Black Panther. Thor Ragnarok is referenced in here that may not have happened because there's a couple of items in the collector's collection that couldn't possibly have gotten there if Ragnarok had happened. And Infinity War and Endgame have been averted. So that's 5 or 6 major storylines in the Marvel Universe affected by this one change.
The Avengers itself, the original Avengers, would have been not the case because Loki was sent by Thanos. And Thanos has changed in this.
Potentially, yeah, that's correct. Yeah. That's another one.
So, they again, as I said, this like the ripple effect on this is huge. But that, like, we could go deeper again. You could say theoretically Ant-Man, based on that. Maybe in this world there is no Civil War, so then there's no Ant-Man. Like it goes on and on and on and on and on.
Yeah, maybe T'Challa's father is supposed to have died, and that was one of the causes of Civil War. He hasn't died in this episode, so potentially no Civil War. So such a massive changes within the MCU just by this one change. Let's talk about that as our second point. What if there was one small change? What's the basic change that we have here?
I mean, the basic change is that you have Prince T'Challa being picked up and beamed up onto a Ravager ship instead of Peter Quill. And it's for the same reasons, in the sense that Prince T'Challa is curious about the world outside of Wakanda, but effectively in playing with his spear, he puts it through the protective dome that shields and hides Wakanda. Yeah. And so Wakanda is still very much that insular, inward-looking, protecting their advances, what they have, which you get in the movies as well. But in this case, then it's that T'Challa is effectively picked up and kidnapped by the Ravagers, and it is T'Challa that becomes Yondu's right hand. I guess for the same reasons, in that he can crawl into small spaces, and can be used for some good bits of theft, you know. So
T'Challa was definitely trying to get himself out of Wakanda. He wasn't just accidentally throwing his spear around and then it happened to go outside. You can tell because of the conversation he had with T'Chaka about wanting to see the outside world and not want to be trapped inside Wakanda. But I love the little joke that he could play it off in case he's caught. I know, I'm just throwing my javelin. I'm just practicing today, kind of thing. Another great joke in this about the Ravagers as well as to why they picked up T'Challa.
Definitely, and just that all humans look alike to them, so they kind of just picked up the human that kind of looked like what they had been given by Ego, but in fact looked nothing like Peter Quill. Yeah. And so just that joke that effectively all humans look, all Terrans look the same, in the same way that I guess maybe we think, certainly, you know, some Star Wars creatures look the same. It's difficult to tell them apart. So that was kind of the kind of little premise around that.
And it's also a reference to Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Doesn't Drax think that Yondu is actually Peter Quill's father, even though Yondu is blue?
Yeah, exactly.
You know? But
two see holes, two hear holes, one speak hole, or one eat hole.
Exactly. But there is one other reason for it as well. They're obviously sent to the planet to pick up Ego's son. So the living planet's son, this celestial being's son. So they're looking for a source of power on Earth, and Wakanda being based on a whole mound of space metal, is another reason why they're attracted to this particular location. So, that's what T'Challa says when he's not hugely shocked about going out into space or hugely, scared about going out into space. He kind of goes, well, I suppose we are built on this mound of very precious space metal. So maybe that's why you're attracted to where I'm going. But I love the Ravagers didn't really check, too much at this. So.
No, it was fun. And the fact that it was Taserface and it was the Sean Gunn, and just they chose some of the best characters from the Ravagers. I think is probably the best. Anytime I see Taserface, I just have Rocket Raccoon laughing, and that's just the best fun of it.
Absolutely, yeah. Great to see Kraglin and Taserface back there. Definitely fun characters from the Ravagers.
Yeah, definitely. I think the other great character here, which I loved, was Korath, the Pursuer, because not only does he know Starlord and knows the notoriety of him about what he's done, what he does, but it's that Korath becomes part of the group. And I loved Korath throughout the rest of this episode, being this fan of T'Challa and kind of worshipping and being so enthusiastic about, you know, what he does, the reasons why he does it. And I think there's some great little comedy moments throughout this. And I thought that was a really nice little change just on that particular character. Yeah. Because with Korath, you know, he is Ronan's right-hand man. He's very serious. He doesn't know who Star-Lord is from Guardians of the Galaxy 1. And ultimately he dies on the Kree ship as it's attacking Nova Prime. So I just thought that was a really nice little touch, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving from, you know, one of the biggest memes to come out of Guardians of the Galaxy with him staring at the screen when told that Peter Quill's name is Starlord, and he goes, who? We've seen that everywhere for the last 15 years. It is literally just that flip of dialogue, isn't it? It's just him going, I know exactly who you are. Of course, you're the famous Starlord. And that changes his character completely, changes his life completely.
Yeah, and I just love the fact that it is T'Challa now is this celebrity in the universe. He has become this icon, not in the way that Starlord in the MCU proper. I don't know what we're going to start calling the proper MCU, the OG, like
the sacred MCU.
The sacred
it's just the MCU. It is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. These are stories of possibilities outside of the MCU, right?
Well, they're still in the MCU technically, because it is still the cinematic universe.
Oh no, we're going to get into a canon discussion, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. Is this canon?
We haven't been given a number for it yet. I'm sure we could go for 999 or something like that.
No, this is the Marvel TV universe.
Oh, no. That was back in the day.
That was all the shows on ABC, John.
Well, it's on TV. It's not in the cinema.
But it's streaming. Ooh. So
Yeah,
it's on your phone.
TV.
It's not just TV. Anyway, let's get out of it. It's the celebrity aspect that I love. And it's this first introduction when we see them go to, which was, I thought, nowhere, but not. It's just this pub.
Yes, we were trying to work that out as to what pub it was. Was it a Ravager pub that we had seen on screen before? But the only one we'd seen of those was on a planet full of snow. And there is a little clue as to where it might be in the fact of who the bartender is that's serving them. Drax is a bartender.
Yes.
And the only reason Drax left his home planet was because it was destroyed by Ronan, who killed his wife and child. And here he says his wife and child are there waiting for him at home. So I think this is Drax's homeworld.
It could be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is where we start to see these additional ripples, just consistent ripple after ripple after ripple after finding out the Ravagers are no longer pirates. They've gone good. And that they have made, and they've made a name for themselves as this, basically a non-profit NGO.
Well, that's it, exactly. And it's in the same way that, you know, Drax is there behind the bar. There's no Groot or Rocket Raccoon with this Star-Lord. But in the bar, we have, I've mentioned Karath coming on board. He's there. But we have Thanos who turns up, which is kind of a nice little moment between Karath and Thanos, just because of their, you know, they work together through Ronan in that sense, but just saying, and what about the sometimes Mad Titan, and just the little tap on the shoulder, and then you get the fantastic running gag throughout the whole of this episode about having, you know, T'Challa having talked Thanos down from his plan to click his fingers and do the snap, and it's still genocide, but it was efficient and with merit, and it's just a really interesting little gag, and kind of playing to T'Challa's that the best weapon is a good argument. You know, his oratory and his debating skills are obviously pretty fine. Absolutely. If he talked down the Mad Titan Thanos.
Yeah.
And that I never thought I'd enjoy that character as much.
Yeah, exactly.
In that aspect.
Yeah.
Because there has been other comic book what ifs, like what if Thanos joined the Avengers, and that we've seen that. We've seen good Thanos. This is different. He still thinks he was right. He just didn't do it.
Yeah.
T'Challa's way was better.
He found a different way. Exactly. Yeah. I think there was at the time, there was kind of the joke or the response to the idea that he would snap his fingers and kill half the universe, because resources were going to run out, and everybody was kind of going, but he has the power to do anything he wants to. Why doesn't he double the resources in the universe rather than killing half the people? Like, that would be the logical option. So that's why everybody went to, he's a mad titan. He wants to kill everybody. Really, he's just using this as an excuse. But here we are finding out that he does have this plan. He believes in his plan, but as you say, T'Challa's proposed something better for him. Initially, when he shows up, it did make me think of like a Rick and Morty episode where that's the kind of thing that would happen, or some of the YouTube videos, the how it should have ended videos, where you have these characters coming up and saying funny lines. But I actually like the character. I think they did, because they had them in the episode for more than just that moment. It wasn't just a good gag. We actually got to see a bit of Thanos as a character as well.
Yeah.
For me, the best part of this episode is the fact that it's a heist episode.
Mm-hmm.
So if this was just let's go around space, different space bars and and see some different characters, I would have had fun with that as well. But it's not. It's in my head, Ant-Man 1 in space. It is a heist film at its heart, or heist episode at its heart, just contracted around different kind of aspects of different films and different characters. So when we get this Nebula coming in, who's never been dissected, never turned directly huge amounts into a cybernetic creature, because Thanos still adopted her, but he never ran too many experiments, so she still has her hair. She was never shaved bald and put in huge implants.
Yeah.
Gamora's not there because Thanos never destroyed her planet and took her with him, So we get to see all these characters, but in a different, and it all kind of boils down to this, well, we want you to go after the Collector because he has something. And it's just this, it's basically Ocean's 11 or Ocean's 8 or Ocean's 12 or Ocean's 13, depending on which Ocean's film you enjoyed. Or the OG Ocean's 11 with the Rat Pack. It is essentially that. This is the Spat Pack, the Space Pack. I don't know.
One of those 5 films is good, Chris.
I would argue 3 of them are good.
We will not argue about that because that's not the podcast. We may come back to it in a future podcast if we run out of other things to talk about. But it is really interesting seeing Nebula here. Yeah, you're right. There's that idea that she never fought against Gamora throughout her life. That was always the challenge between the two of them. That's the battle that was going on, and the fact that Thanos would have experimented on her throughout her life. And here she's coming with this proposition. She's coming with this idea of another tool that T'Challa can use to feed more people and to help more people on more planets. And it does play into that central kind of argument he must have had with Thanos about this is how we can help the universe. These are the things that we can do. So I love him getting together the team. I love him getting together the plan. And I love that we're kept in the dark about what exactly is going on as well. Cause we've seen Gamora be duplicitous all the way throughout her time within the Marvel universe. So you expect that she is twisting and turning on everybody around her.
Well, they play with that, which is the nice thing, because of the seeming double cross that she does, because she has this debt to the Collector, who's now this main antagonist, this huge crime lord, head of a syndicate, and so that it looks as though she betrays the Ravagers and T'Challa, so that the Collector can collect T'Challa and hang him up in one of the boxes in his big storage collection, or alternatively dissect him. And I love that. Like you, Chris, I love this heist element to it. I thought it was really good. I liked the little touch of the Black Order being on security, which was a nice little way to bring those in. Yeah. And, you saw a number of the different things that you saw in the movies, like the Dark Elf, you saw Howard the Duck, and you saw Cosmo, the Russian cosmonaut dog. And to your point as well, Chris, before, about, changes in the Avengers and them coming together, or with Thor Ragnarok particularly. We see here Captain America's shield as well in the big fight, in the big showdown. You see Thor's hammer there as well as Hela's big Asgardian headdress, as well, used by the Collector to, when he's fighting, against T'Challa. I loved the moment, where I think the gag that T'Challa uses, your outfit would suggest otherwise, as he's the Collector's in this hugely elaborate sort of fur-looking coat. He says, "I'm not one for drama," and T'Challa says, "Your outfit would suggest otherwise." Just those nice little gag, and I loved all these touches running through this episode, for sure.
There's so much in the Collector's Palace. Definitely wouldn't catch everything that's in there, but one that I like, the blink and you miss it moment, is him using his first weapon, the arm of a Krogan, and saying, this was the arm of a pretty chatty Krogan. Well, that is Korg, right? From Thor Ragnarok. That's Taika Waititi's character from Thor Ragnarok, which is a pretty brutal way for him to go. And
God bless you, the Collector.
Used as an arm. The other kind of knock-on effect we didn't really speak about as well is the reason why the Collector is so powerful in this universe is that he came in to subsume Thanos' position in the universe when Thanos backed down and stopped doing what he's doing. That's why he has the Black Order as his armed guards. That's why his collection is about 7 times the size of what we saw in Guardians of the Galaxy. It's because he's effectively using all the power that he now has available to him with the vacuum that was left behind by Thanos to go out in the universe and collect everything he wants, and nobody can stop him because he's so powerful now.
Yeah. And the just this, as you said, John, like just some of the things that are in his collection. The people, like Howard the Duck being voiced by Seth Green.
Once again, yes.
Just, it's fantastic choices.
Great to have him back, yeah.
Yeah. And just all these different, he was good. He does it good.
It was great to have Seth Green back in the role as Howard the Duck.
Oh, yeah. Seth Green did Howard the Duck really well.
Yes.
I'm just not a fan of Howard the Duck.
Yeah.
Oh, I love him. I really wish we had got that animated show.
The other thing I really don't like about him is he's been in the MCU like 3 times now and played by Seth Green each time. They've used the same joke pretty much all 3 times. The you're out of luck until you've gone duck is the joke that's been used 3 times. And they're kind of going, he only gets about 5 lines of dialogue every time he appears or less. This time he has a good bit of dialogue with T'Challa running around inside the Collector's place and he still uses the same line. It's like, wow.
I think it would have been really good, if the Collector has filled Thanos' power vacuum, he's got his tentacles all the way through the galaxy, that he's collected, the scrumptious delicacy from China that is crispy duck, and he's just hanging up and sort of getting, juicier and more marinated, ready for sort of the great banquet.
He's Peking duck. He's the peak of Peking duck. I just enjoyed it. I know the day after this comes out that there will be articles upon articles of, did you see in the background this or this or this or this or this? Like the ships alone that we see, one of the best aspects is we see the Wakandan spaceship from the Wakandan Empire storyline in the comic books where Wakanda goes to space. And this plays into this storyline. We'll get to that in a second. Right. You see the Nova Corps ship. You see a Milano. You see the original Milano, not the secondary ship from Guardians of the Galaxy 2. You see the OG Milano.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the Millennium Falcon was in there.
Literally, but that's the thing.
It could have been.
It could have been. And I think that will be the fun aspects. You'll probably see I couldn't catch all of the weapons. Mm-hmm. I saw some daggers and I was trying to go, was that Loki's daggers?
Probably.
And it was in my head that, and then I was like, okay, is there probably going to be web shooters in there? Is there going to be this or that's the fun part of these shows, because this is not canon. This is not they could, within reason, probably they pitch some very strange things and will get away with them. I think it's so fun that they end the battle with the Collector and the Yondu and T'Challa with sticky fingers, which is just this callback that, to be fair, ran over my head the first time. Mm-hmm. And it was probably before we started recording and we discussed it, was when I was like, connections back. Yeah. But they could have gone anything. They could have got the nullifier from the Fantastic Four and got this just tiny little thing and hit him, or they got Galactus to come in and eat him. Right. All these weird...
I still think for these early episodes, they're trying to keep to the MCU as much as they possibly can, and especially for these kind of references and Easter eggs that they're doing, I think they're really trying to keep to the things that people may have seen in the movies before. That was always the fun of What If in the comic books, was it would reference things that you've already seen in major comic book storylines, so that you could kind of pick them out as you went through page by page. What are the changes? What's the ripple effect of having this massive change to one character, or this really small choice or really small change to a character, and what's the ripple effects throughout the overall storyline that you read amongst those 32 pages, you know?
Yeah.
So,
well, I think
because most of the MCU is now kind of broken away and it's not directly connected with, you can't pick up a comic of any of these storylines, until after the movies have come out. I think they're trying to reference the fact that, you know, you've seen this on screen, and if you look long enough at the episode, you'll also see them on the little screen here.
I think as well, it's like with the first episode with Agent Carter. Here in this episode, T'Challa is to some degree the same person with the same integrity, the same motivation that he had in the Black Panther movie.
Yeah.
It's now, you know, it like S.H.I.E.L.D., he's just in space now. And so, you know, it's the same kind of thing, but he's in a different context, and because of his influence, things have changed on a galactic level.
Yeah.
And we see that, you know, this is contrasted with the fact that because the Wakandans went looking for the lost prince of T'Challa, then yes, they have searched every nook and cranny of the galaxy and space to try and find T'Challa, but they are still hunkered down within their protective shield in Wakanda. They haven't gone to explore their own planet and to make those connections like we see in the movie. And that's all, you know, comes from and gets explained because similarly in the movies of Guardians of the Galaxy, Yondu has lied to T'Challa as to why he's been taken, which is the same thing that happened with Yondu and Peter Quill. And I like that as well. T'Challa here, they ultimately make their peace because of the importance of family. And I thought that at the end where T'Challa takes his adoptive family, his crew, his space family, to see his, you know, his real family, his biological family there in Wakanda. I thought that was a really neat little touch. To just kind of really keep that consistency on the character of T'Challa, because he has such a great relationship with his family members, his sisters and so on. And I just thought that was a nice touch that they kind of brought in here as well. Exactly.
So that's perfect kind of segue into our third point. The what if the universe was changed forever? So what would be so different at the end of this episode? And the key one is two key ones. The first is that the Wakandans are more than likely going to go to space even further now. They have found their prince. So there's this amazing storyline in the comic books of the Wakandan Galactic Empire, which is just so much fun. It's a really good if you're reading any of the comics, I strongly suggest kind of jumping in and reading some of these because it's a fun romp in space. And I really enjoyed it, but it's that possibility of, well, then you get the Dora Milaje in space. Then you get M'Baku in space. You get Shuri in space. You get all these characters with the aspects of Peter Quill on top of that. And then in the end, you get the Galactic Star Panther or the Lord of the Panthers, or I don't know what you would put, how you would combine it, but essentially Black Panther and Starlord in one. And that's a really fun aspect to that. I would, if we were ever to get in season 2, them to come back and kind of revisit some of these universes. This is one for definite that I would be interested to see the next step on, to see how that goes. Yeah. But there's an even bigger impact.
Oh, absolutely. I must say, first off, I love that this ended with Peter Quill mopping the floor in the Dairy Queen. Mm-hmm. I just thought that was a neat little touch. Yeah. And I think even neater that because of the mistake being able to distinguish Terrans by the Ravagers, and not picking Peter Quill, is that Ego has gone after to find his son anyway. And presuming, I guess, or assuming here that for the same plan, that he had in, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, which was to take over the universe, to seed himself throughout the universe in different planets. And so I love the fact here that, Peter Quill may just go with Ego's plan, or he might not have the power to resist him, in a sense, because there's no Guardians of the Galaxy to back him up and to help him destroy Ego. Yeah. He's not been flying spacecraft, or neither knows how to use a laser, so he's got no means other than maybe bashing Ego over the head with the mop and bucket.
Yeah. But it's a very big head. He's a living planet.
Exactly. And I think it comes to, we said in our first point about, well, the Infinity War and Endgame are averted. But when you think of Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and the plan of the expansion by Ego, then if this is still on the table, this becomes this universe's, this timeline's, Infinity War level threat, which I just think is, really good. So all this is actually really positive, but it finishes on a point where, well, the expansion could happen in the next 2 weeks. Ultimately, and it ripples out through, where he's placed his seed on all these planets. I say 2 weeks, it could be 2 months. I don't know. 2 seconds, maybe Ego blinks and he's back, in the center of his planet.
Yeah, I know part of the expansion was he was going to train Peter up in the ways of using the powers, so the two of them would amplify the whole thing and take over the universe, quicker if Peter joins his side. I just think that's what's so interesting about this point where he's still in that Dairy Queen back in his hometown, hasn't moved at all, as opposed to going out into space and learning all the things he's learned over those 20 odd years that he was out there. That's quite interesting. It makes you think that maybe he would take on the option of becoming, a celestial being and being able to control the powers that Ego's telling him he can control. So
sounds better than mopping the floors.
Potentially, yeah. Maybe he enjoys mopping the floors. Maybe he owns the Dairy Queen. But it would still seem like being part of half of the universe and owning every planet on it seems like a bigger upgrade than owning one Dairy Queen in Missouri. So yes, I think he would probably jump into that role.
Yeah, me too.
I think so too. So then when we come back, if we were ever to come back to it, it would be interesting. It would be interesting to see how Star-Lord / Black Panther deals with this, with Thanos on his side, with all the rest of the Ravagers and potentially other galactic heroes.
Yeah, and you could see this in a season 2 episode. You could see this as what if Peter Quill was taken in 2015 from rather than in 1988. Do we have any notes about the episode? I know I have one or two about the episode. I know we've missed loads of some of the knock-on effects, but do you guys have any additional notes about the episode?
No, not for me.
What about you, Derek? Then, come on.
Just one that I wrote in my notes. I'm going to say it out loud as well and share it on the podcast, because what I wrote in my notes was the voice actor that took on the role of the Collector just couldn't get the cadence that Benicio del Toro did as the Collector in Guardians of the Galaxy. And then we got the press release of the cast members that are in the show, and Benicio del Toro is confirmed as a voice actor for the series of What If. So that is Benicio del Toro's voice as the Collector, playing the same role. I obviously forgot the cadence of the character myself, so that's quite interesting that they did bring Benicio back on board for this role, isn't it?
Well, this is the thing. Yeah. Like when it's animated, it's 2-3 days worth of work
potentially
versus like they just, and also a lot of this voice acting was done in bedroom cupboards and kind of wardrobes and everything as they during COVID last year. Yeah. During lockdown when we were globally in all the different places. So I'd say that's probably also aspects to it, because there's definitely some different timbre to the some of the the lines that you could probably tell that some of the lines, not just on the Benicio del Toro, but all of them, when there was definitely a different recording session when they did some pickups.
Maybe, yeah.
They just sounded different. It just sounded slightly different.
But I think if you watch Tom Hanks explain voice acting on the Graham Norton show, I don't think he would agree that it's just simply show up and that, depending obviously on how big
God,
it
no,
is.
I'm not saying that. And
part,
as a fan of Critical Role,
yeah,
nothing but voice actors, all of the best. Like they are fantastic and they have some crazy work, especially video game voice actors. Mm-hmm. No, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying for a shorter appearance in one of these shows, it's more like 2-3 days versus a shoot.
Yeah, and the vast majority of the voice actors that are used in here, as we mentioned before, are the actors from movies.
Yes.
Most of them not voice actors, and they are two very different skills. We've seen that from the voice actors that we've talked about on the animated shows over the course of this last year. The voice acting that they can do, making themselves sound completely different for various different characters, like, for example, D. Bradley Baker in Star Wars: The Bad Batch, who voices 7 different characters every single week, and all of them sound pretty different, and with a New Zealand accent as well on top of it all. A great voice actor. Yeah. And some of these other actors coming in for their spot, doing one role that they may have played 10 years ago, like Benicio del Toro, may just get it slightly differently when they're doing their readings. Of course, we can't expect that, but it is wonderful getting that as an Easter egg. It's great just picking out whose voice is there and whose isn't. Again, really good to see Josh Brolin in there, playing Thanos in this role. Like, that's a completely different version of Thanos that he's played, but we know Josh Brolin has a really good sense of humor because we've seen him in many, many interviews and many other roles. So, he must have thought this was hilarious playing this version of Thanos.
100%, especially it's a bit more Cable-esque in the dry wit, if you will.
But that was my only other note, just that I had originally thought that Benicio del Toro's voice was slightly different, and turned out to be actually him.
Good stuff. Any notes, Chris?
Nothing from my side. There are hundreds of Easter eggs.
Probably.
There's the Dark Elves from Thor: The Dark World. 100% saw them. It looked like, it sounded like the same actress who played the Collector's assistant.
Oh, Karina.
It was. Yep.
There was the little insect from Thor Ragnarok. Pretty sure I saw him in one of the, like, there was so many in there. Again, and even with, like, say, Cosmo, like, he didn't talk, but he could. So that's the next, like, there's so many fun bits in it. I'm just like, all right, bring me the breakdown, people.
Let's watch it again next week. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. But let's get on to our defense. Chris, do you defend this second episode of What If?
Yes, I do defend this episode. This is the next step in the, they're introducing people. People are getting more and more comfortable in this series with the changes. So I personally really enjoyed it. I understand what ifs, but I also understand why they took it a bit more cautiously in the first episode. But this episode takes the premise to the next level. Oh, again, with one slight change, one pebble thrown into the sea, how do those ripples affect? And that pebble being T'Challa, and being one of Chadwick Boseman's last ever performances ever, is just, it's fantastic. And the passion he puts through as an actor in this character is just so much fun. So yes, I 100% kind of defend this one. Derek, do you defend this episode of What If?
Absolutely defend this episode. Yeah, it's a really good episode. Despite the fact that I preferred the story in the first one. This is the crowd-pleasing episode. This is the one that is exactly the kind of episode I love to see in shows like this that are getting off the ground and trying to get in a new audience. It's, hey, look how big changes can be made by just this one small change in this universe, and let's have loads of knock-on effects, and let's have people in the background that have changed completely by this one little knock-on effect. That's the fun of What If, and I think they've nailed that perfectly in the second episode. As we mentioned in the last episode, first one is just about setting it up as a concept, and this one is about how much fun can we have with the concept. And I'm sure next time it's going to be even more fun with the concept as well. How about yourself, John? Do you defend this episode of What If?
Yep, I really do defend this episode. Loved it. I'd give it 4.5 lucky drinking ducks out of 5. Yeah, I just thought this was superb. I thought it was a real nice little testament to the character of T'Challa. I thought it was, that it's the one of the final sort of acting pieces that Chadwick Boseman did. I think it's really fitting that this to me felt really kind of meaningful. I loved just the changes that happened here, and I think it even connected in with how people changed. Thanos changed, Yondu changed, and it was all driven by T'Challa, and they weren't going through. Not to say the first one went through the motions, but they didn't just kind of act out the same thing. There were significant differences happening here at, galaxy scale. And I really, really enjoyed, the impact of that from the small little mistake, basically because the Ravagers couldn't, distinguish between Terrans. So I thought that was really good. I thought, Korath, the Pursuer, I loved that character through here. Just the enthusiasm and energy that came to this character, which we didn't really see in the films. Thanos as well. Just, a really sort of just given how big it was played up in Infinity War and Endgame, and just, when you think back to that post-credit scene of Thanos in his chair, and the seriousness of his mission in those movies, to have him seemingly quite relaxed, having been changed and convinced otherwise.
He's a gardener now, John.
And is now a gardener, and the little gag that runs through it, really, really good. Yeah. So I absolutely love this. So I definitely defend this episode with 4.5 lucky drinking ducks out of 5.
Yeah. It's a fun episode, isn't it? It's, as I say, what if T'Challa became Starlord? Well, the whole galaxy would be fixed and we wouldn't have any massive battles versus the Avengers, because he'd just talk to everybody and sort out the issues with them. What a great legacy for T'Challa.
It really is.
Yeah, it really is.
And hopefully it's not the end. We may be seeing Chadwick Boseman a few more times throughout this season, which will be fun.
Absolutely.
So at the end of this season, we will then officially reach the end of Chadwick Boseman's portrayal. Long may he reign as King of Wakanda, at least until Wakanda Forever, the second Black Panther film comes out.
Yeah, exactly. Let's head over to the pub. Time for our pub quiz question for the week. John?
Yes, get yourselves laid back in some galactic space bar, start drinking some of that sort of lovely psychedelic juice that they serve over there, with our question 2 from this episode. What folklore hero does T'Challa embody as Star-Lord? And for a bonus point for this question, what name does Yondu give this folklore hero? So 2 answers here. The correct, historically or legend correct answer about the folklore hero that T'Challa embodies, and the mistake on the name given by Yondu. And send in your answers to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. Separately or all together once the 9 episodes of What If have finished, and we will pull out the fellow quizzer who gets the most questions right. Then will be selected from the electronic voice in the speaker randomly, as we do now.
If you haven't heard the podcast before, that all makes little sense to you, I'm sure. But we will be giving away some goodies for What If at the end of the season. I think it's 3 Funko Pops from the collection of What If versions of the Marvel characters coming up at the end of the season. So get your answers in. 2 points available on this week's question, which is pretty cool. John, do you want to remind them what the question is, please?
Absolutely. What folklore hero does T'Challa embody as Starlord? And for a bonus point, what name does Yondu give this folklore hero?
Excellent. Time to leave the pub. We've done lots of talking about episode 2. Thanks so much to all of our fellow defenders who've been sending us in their feedback on episode 1. Let's go back in time to episode 1, Captain Carter, the First Avenger. First up, we have Matt Murdoch, who sent us in a voicemail about the music of Captain Carter. This is really, really interesting, guys. I'm looking forward to hearing what you thought about this one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Derek, John, and Chris, hello from across the pond. Matt, once again. Derek and John, I know you guys especially would be interested in this musical feedback because you guys, as well as myself and Catfish, we loved Laura Cartman and Raphael Sadiq's score for Lovecraft Country. And lo and behold, another Lovecraft Country alumni is involved with Marvel. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. I can only imagine, though, how difficult it is for a new composer to come into a very established musical world and try and create new music for a new series. Many composers have done a great job doing that, but I love the way that Cartman incorporated some of the Avengers stuff into her score. It was fantastic, especially in the end credits. The theme you hear in the end credits is essentially the theme for the Avengers, just twisted up a little bit. And it may have been a director's note. It may have been a showrunner note. We want this to sound like the Avengers. And so she literally took some of the best parts of the Avengers theme and kind of rearranged it. Let me just play for you one of the big musical icons, because essentially in the MCU, you have to create musical icons, and the Avengers theme is definitely one of those musical icons. So she took this from the, original Avengers movie, and she just rearranged it a little bit to sound like this. I'm sure you and all of your listeners can hear those similarities. One of the main things that's similar, of course, is just the initial note's melodic shape. Everything has these notes in it and at this shape. Same notes in the same order. There is a variation in the last part of the phrase where the melody for Cartman goes this way. But even that is borrowed from the progression of the original Avengers. Listen to how the bass notes go in this section of the Avengers theme. That bottom note is what becomes a new melody note in Cartman's theme. So lots of stuff borrowed, and perfectly done so. After all, it is Captain Carter, the First Avenger. All of the melodies are very similar, but it's a different universe, so it's going to be just slightly tweaked. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Even though, I will say, Brad Whitford is still always going to be Josh Lyman to me, no matter what. Anyway, love the episode. Hope you guys did too. Take care.
Excellent stuff, Matt. That's so interesting. Bradley Whitford, by the way, I never watched West Wing, so the character you're talking about never enters my mind. I always just think of his character from Get Out or his character from Cabin in the Woods. So when he appears on screen, I recognize him from that. But yes, he played the head of the SSR in the Captain Carter episode, but he says every time he hears his voice, he just thinks of the character from the West Wing. Yes, great to hear Laura Cartman back from her work on Lovecraft Country. Myself and Don absolutely love that. I know we talked about that multiple times, and really good to hear those themes together. I don't think I ever would have picked up what it was that was different between the two themes without hearing them side by side like that. Yeah,
and it's really great stuff, Matt, to get the examples of how it changes, because you're right, that idea of a new composer coming into an established huge property, even though this is now the animation, but with established musical themes that run through it, and creating the new sort of tweaked, adjusted music to fit this kind of multiverse, or one of the multiverse where something has changed, and based it on that established theme. It's just really, just so good. As always, Matt, really, nice to get your feedback in, on the musical, aspect here of this first episode of What If on Captain Carter.
Absolutely. I think you'd be overloaded if you're trying to do this every episode, given how many themes are going to be going on throughout What If.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. And like, as you said, it's the fun part of this is it's the universe we know, it's the tunes we know, but slightly different.
Exactly. Also, over on email, Jerry got in contact with us. He says, "Hey guys, the new What If is a gorgeous piece of animation art. The creative storytelling was excellent. The voice casting, for the most part, was good. My only nitpick was the Watcher's voice. Jeffrey Wright seemed uninspired to me. I know this is just the first episode. I always imagined the Watcher to sound like Leonard Nimoy, very stoic and cold. The other nitpick I have, there should have been a scene of the Red Skull taking the Tesseract from the Hydra Stomper, instead of the Red Skull just having the Tesseract calling Cthulhu. Cannot wait for more episodes, Jerry." Thanks, Jerry. I know what you mean about the Tesseract, about Red Skull taking it. I think I've actually heard a couple of podcasts and a couple of people talking about it where they missed what had happened and how the Red Skull got the Tesseract back, because it's such a big moment that Peggy gets it early on before it arrives at Red Skull, and then he has it back later on, but he's taken it from the Hydra Stomper at some scene in the middle, effectively. But they could have put it in there to make it a bit clearer for everybody. But yeah, I do understand the nitpick.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jerry. And I get with Mr. Wright, I suppose. Look, I definitely see where you're coming with Mr. Nimoy. Like, Leonard was
definitely,
obviously could have been the fantastic. I think hopefully now that you've heard episode 2 and you've listened to episode 2, you can start to see why Jeffrey Wright was chosen. Mm-hmm. Because the Watcher is cold and stoic until he's not. Yeah. They do not interfere until they do.
There's that detached element for sure. Very matter of fact, I guess, is of the Watchers for sure. Yeah, I definitely agree.
We also got an email from Coffee and Vodka, who had this to say: "Hello, watching Defenders. Wow, wow, wow. Loki let the multiverse genie out of the bottle, and what a genie it is. Flawless and fluid animation surrounding a flowing natural narrative. Peggy's a perfect fit in the front lines. Hell, she is the front line. Her battle with the misogynistic brass, friendship with Howard Stark, tentative romance with Steve Hydra Crusher Rogers, and final sacrifice rounded out her already well-defined character. My only complaint, if you could call it that, is that a training montage wouldn't have gone amiss. Although being animated, one can forgive a Mary Sue, or should I say, a Peggy Sue. Also, why do you think they went with Captain Carter rather than Captain Britain? 5 out of 5, Union Jack Shields. Continued thanks and take care, Coffee and Vodka." Thank you, Coffee and Vodka. Essentially, they went for Captain Carter and not Captain Britain because Captain Britain is an established Marvel comic book character, has been teased within Endgame or Infinity War as Brian Braddock. He was initially name dropped, actually not even name dropped, his name was written, in, Captain America Winter Soldier, when we first heard kind of Stephen Strange being named. He's been around for a while, so seemingly they have been thinking about how and when to bring in Captain Britain, so he is slightly a no-go for now.
Right. I actually just simply thought it was just as easy as she was Agent Carter and she needed an upgrade to Captain Carter. I think it's just as simple as that.
No,
she says it herself.
Too.
She wanted the title. Yeah, she chose Captain Carter from Agent Carter.
Yeah.
So I think it makes sense. And yeah, I know what you mean. She's not replacing Captain America. She's on a new Captain America. She is Captain Carter, a whole new entity to become the first Avenger. Why we don't have a training montage? I suppose we've seen Agent Carter. If you think about the moment that this happens in the episode where she takes the super soldier serum, we've already seen about 25 minutes of Captain America, the first Avenger. And in those moments, we saw her punch someone to the ground. We know she has pretty good capability when it comes to fighting. So she doesn't need a training montage. She now just has extra powers to add to how good she is physically anyway. So that's probably why we don't have that.
Yeah, good stuff, Coffee and Vodka. Thanks so much for the email in. Over on Facebook, Joel Sharpton says, I'm always late with feedback, so I'll get in early for the next episode. These are so exciting, and the initial episode actually lived up to that overhyped expectation. So fun to see twists on characters and situations. If most of these what-if stories are basically condensed 30-minute movies using your own pre-knowledge of the original story, I'm even more excited to see the ones we don't know are coming. Mm-hmm. Really good point there, Joel. There's a lot here that we don't know. Even the opening title credits, with, the shards showing slightly different variations and so on. A lot of them actually, are kind of already done, by the second episode. So, we haven't seen Doctor Strange or Spider-Man, like we've seen in the official, sort of promotional stuff and material here. But, I'm like, what? There must be something more that we're just not seeing, or the way they're going to weave them together is going to be really, really interesting. And, I think you bang on the nail. You come with the knowledge of the movies, and so they can take an awful lot for granted to really whip through, the whole episode. Great stuff, Joel. Thanks.
Yes, thank you so much, Joel. But if you don't have that preconceived knowledge and understanding, that is what our episodes are for, because our first point is, what is it based on? Yeah,
I'd also highly recommend, if you don't know what's coming up with the series, check out those Marvel Legends videos, the 8-minute videos they put on Disney Plus, because they definitely explain some of the things that you may have missed out. Even if you've seen the movies multiple times, they pick out little things. Speaking of things that may have been affected in the universe, Heather Wallace also comments on Facebook. She says, I really enjoyed this first episode. I love the Peggy and Steve story in all its star-crossed forms. I also really enjoyed the friendship between Peggy and Howard, and having the voice actors back was just brilliant. Bucky saying, you almost pulled my arm off, was a fun and cheeky nod to the universe we know. And since he doesn't become the Winter Soldier, does that mean Howard isn't assassinated? Is there a whole fleet of Iron Man suits in this universe? And is Tony and Howard's relationship better? Or is Steve a substitute father figure for Tony? And Tony refines the suit and becomes Iron Man to honor him. I really enjoyed hearing your thoughts and insights. And Chris, you have no idea how accurate your comment about the Watcher's voice being like a bedtime story is. I had surgery last week and now I'm home in bed recuperating. I listened to you three gentlemen to comfort myself. Thanks so much, Heather. That's really good to hear. I'm hoping that we're getting you through some recovery, while you're recuperating in bed, at the moment. Some really good thoughts there as well. I love the idea that there are additional knock-on effects we didn't even think about. The idea that potentially, since there's no Winter Soldier, who would be the one to murder Howard Stark, which kicks off all of Civil War. So loads of extra elements that could have been, out of this universe just purely because of that one moment with Peggy, right?
Yeah, huge. Just, it's the knock-on effect. Is like you always talk about the ripple and ripple and ripple and ripple.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much, Heather. And I really hope you are feeling better.
Yeah, definitely, Heather. Hope you're getting yourself better as well. Definitely.
Since you had some surgery, we also have some feedback from Dr. Bob Phillips. That's a segue. I'm going to take it.
Perfect.
Dr. Bob
Absolutely.
Phillips had this to say. 5 minutes in, son asks, so, was he mostly annoyed because Peggy's a girl or because she is British?
Love it.
He also greatly appreciated the swears in German subtitle for Armanzola. We also loved the keeping of the dance lines and the Nazi giant with a striking resemblance to Gaston. And the way her hair stayed amazing throughout it all, on point. Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Bob. And I think it's because she's British, because British people annoy us all. I say being kind of half. I'm allowed to say that. Speaking also to another British person and to Dr. Bob. I'm going to say it's because she's British. I get away with it. It's fine. Mm-hmm. Oh, I said the words and I walked it back as soon as they left my lips.
Okay, Chris. Apologize now.
I'm sorry.
Excellent.
It is the curious questions, I guess. And certainly I think, I definitely appreciate learning swear words through foreign language subtitles, or dare I say, even just knowing by given the reference that there is swears in German. And that was really funny as well. I can just imagine Toby Jones sort of cowering and doing it in that kind of pathetic voice. It was really, really amazing. Thanks so much, Dr. Bob, and your son as well. Also, over on Facebook, Jeff Childs says, I really enjoyed the episode. I wish it was an hour episode. It was like having Captain America compressed into 30 minutes. Peggy and Howard are so fun together, and it was great to have the original actors back. Jeffrey Wright is wonderful as the Watcher. He is like the Rod Sterling of the MCU. I wonder if they're going to do more with the character than just intros and outros. Thanks so much, Jeff. I am totally with you with Peggy and Howard. I loved the chemistry that they brought to that animated performance and the voice acting. And you, as you say, you can tell that they were involved in the various episodes through 2 seasons of the Peggy Carter series. It was just really wonderful. And who knows on the intros and outros for the Watcher? I think it will really depend how they weave, or if they weave, I guess, these characters from the different universes together. I guess at this moment in time, the Watcher, in terms of the stories we've had, is simply seeing the additional universes that form the multiverse being created through these slight changes. So you never know. I guess there's a bigger part in there somewhere.
Yeah, we certainly noticed in this episode, in episode 2, we've certainly noticed a little more of a presence of the Watcher throughout the episode at least. So not just talking and saying the intro and outro of the episode, he's also a little bit present in the background. So keep an eye out. We may see more of him as the season goes on. Thanks, Jeff. AJ Apperstall says, I loved this episode and I know I'm going to love this show. So far, Disney has not disappointed with their shows. I love how the small decision of Peggy not going to the viewing room can not only change her future, but also the future of so many people, even ones not born yet. I honestly thought that when the train exploded that Steve was going to be the Winter Soldier. I did have a question though. How did Hydra get the Tesseract to open the portal? I thought Captain Carter took it from the Doctor. Was the Tesseract in the Hydra Stomper suit? Can't wait for next week. Yes, that's exactly what happened. That's Howard had used the Tesseract to build the Hydra Stomper suit, and when Red Skull got his hands on it, he popped out the Tesseract to use it. Thanks, AJ.
Yep, thanks, AJ.
Yep, thanks, AJ. Donald Dennis had this to say, I really liked episode 1, though it took me a hot minute to catch up because everything was moving so fast. It felt like we got a full 6-episode season in 30 minutes, and it could have benefited from a bit of breathing room. But for the form factor of What If, it was amazing, and it kept me guessing. The buff Peggy Carter was impressive, and it seemed like she is more powerful than Steve Rogers was as Cap. Maybe this is because it was an animated feature, but I suspect that it may be because she was not as infirm as Steve was before she was enhanced. If so, it is a great bit of world building. The Iron Man suit is a fantastic commentary on Stark's particular brand of brilliance. He has the ultimate power and he puts it in a tin can and sends it to the front. As opposed to the Red Skull, who's going to keep it safe and secret, using it to power the entire Hydra army. While the Hydra God was an interesting animation event, and I love the sequence, it just didn't quite make sense. But I really liked the whole thing. I've even watched it again. Thank you so much, Donald. Yeah, I think everyone's a bit with the Hydra God. Was it Cthulhu? Was it... Who was it? What was it? I think it was just a good old monster.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I definitely agree with Donald. You know, it's a change to the original, and whether it's a knock-on effect because of what happened or because something, you know, has happened to the Red Skull that we've not seen on camera. So the change is a little weird, but there is a nice little moment where the artifact door with the Tree of Life that the Red Skull has taken from the church from Norway, and there is a little motif though which shows the Tesseract in a portal with the tentacles coming out. So I guess it's the idea of, the mythology, being real in the same sense as Thor existing. So in that sense, I can see that it makes sense, but where it came from, it would be, I guess that's the reason we don't find that out, is just because it is such a, at a quick pace, the whole thing. And I do like your idea that Peggy started from a higher base with the serum being injected into her. And so maybe, that explains, that she was maybe a bit tougher or a bit stronger than Steve. So, that is really, that really makes sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely was. Much higher base than Steve. When he got the serum, he wouldn't have even made it into the army, and she'd already been in the army for multiple years.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
Definitely. Thanks so much, Donald, for the feedback. Deanna DeBreen Maskell says, enjoyed this a lot, especially the comic book feel and how awesome non-buff Steve is, as well as their relationship. Peggy Carter has always rocked, and now she is amazing. Absolutely agree with you there, Deanna. Salima Kisler on Facebook says, this was brilliant. So far, this is the first Marvel Disney Plus show to exceed my expectations in the first episode. The character motivations are all consistent with who we know. The animation is beautiful and reminds me of superhero cartoons I enjoyed as a youngster, or more recently as well. Getting Steve in on the action in the proto-Iron Man suit was pitch perfect. I believe the monster coming through the Tesseract was some version of, or a nod to Hive from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Loved this episode, and I'm looking forward to the podcast. Yeah, thanks, Salim. It's interesting you say about the Hive, because that was my first thing that I went to when I saw the monster coming through the portal that was being powered by the Tesseract as well. And I think it's certainly, it's the Hydra god of the tentacles and the skull face. And I think in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it's mainly just the skull. Hive kind of reveals his skull behind it. But I do remember tentacles. It's been such a long time.
Yeah, certainly there are tentacles involved in Hive's head, but it's human-sized head almost. So it's not this massive beast that we saw on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I'm sure there are versions of Hive that are similar to this, and I know one of the ones that's out there everywhere is that this is 100% Shoma Gorath, the Doctor Strange villain. That's absolutely what it is. Don't think so. Yeah. It's more to do with Hydra. It was what we think when we were talking about it on episode 1. It's definitely more connected with Hydra, and I think you're onto something. This could be this universe's version of Hive. Doesn't matter whether it looks the same as Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. No, John, you were saying that as well when we were talking. It doesn't really matter if it looks the same as Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It could absolutely be the Marvel Disney Plus universe's version of Hive that they're introducing here. But really what it's trying to explain is at the end of Captain America, the First Avenger, Johann Schmidt, or Red Skull, was pulled through a portal created by the Tesseract. And that's what he's been experimenting on, is creating these portals and windows to other worlds to try and pull in other powers. But actually, once again, he gets killed because of it, or he gets taken out because of it. So that's what's happened here. So yeah, but excellent stuff. Thanks, Liam, for your feedback. Michael Booth says, that was fun. Felt rushed cramming a 2-hour movie into a 30-minute show, but I guess the idea is that we already know the story beats, so we get shorthand. I loved all the subtle nods to the prime reality, the jokes about the Bonds tour, the dancing turning into dance lessons, the proving herself like an Agent Carter, and the slight changes to the Cap theme. Animation was snappy and fights were slick. Though it was weird that we saw Steve take bullets to the chest with no wounds. Disney family friendly, I guess. I'm so happy that they made Carter buff like Steve rather than just powering her up with no physical changes. Overall, awesome. Can't wait for the rest of the series.
Thanks so much, Mike. Yeah, agreed. 100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
The bullets to the chest with no wound. Yeah, that's pretty much what that is. But that being said, we have seen people over on our Bad Batch podcast get shot in the head, and we've seen Viscera. So who knows what it was?
And they've apparently still survived in the Bad Batch, so yeah.
Yeah,
well, that was also a different species. Remember, we did get some good feedback that said maybe their brain isn't in their head.
That's true.
So
That's
true.
They were a politician too.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks,
exactly.
Michael.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mike.
Ronaldo says, okay, again, I'm only halfway through the first episode, but I wanted to lay out my thoughts. All I could say so far is brilliant. I know it's a pretty early call, but I'm talking purely just production and what I see at the moment. The animation is nothing I've seen before, though, at the same time harks towards polished comic book artistry you'd expect from the likes of Jolie Jones, or more recently, Elena Casagrande. Added to this fact is the beautiful works of art are kinetic and move so fluently. It's a true pleasure to watch. The action scenes of Captain Carter, my God, I'm going to say it far exceeds anything live action can do. You can follow all the movements quite easily and the sequences aren't hindered by the laws of the physical world. In animation, all those kicks, flips and hits look so damn perfect. I'm loving this. I love the fact that it's an alternate reality. You can really have fun with this, and the fact we get voices to familiar characters only accentuate this more. This is the MCU proving again that they are trailblazers. I could watch this over and over again. Thanks so much, Ronaldo. Yeah, what a great way to start the season. As we said, this is just easing you in. You've now seen the second episode as well, and you've seen they've already pushed the concept to much further levels.
Yes, 100%. And you're right, the MCU are trailblazers. They were one of the first and the most successful with a connected universe. And look at where we are now, 10 years later, 24 films, X amount of seasons of shows, and it's just fantastic. It really is. I could watch it all over. I could do this all day. A bit more of an MCU reference. I could do this all day.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ronaldo. And definitely the animation was gorgeous when we finally watched it on Disney Plus.
Oh, yeah.
In the previews, it just, I guess, just the way it was processed and how it came onto our screen, it didn't feel quite as vibrant and up there, but still loved it. And then getting it on the big screen straight from the old D plus, then, it was really great animation. And as I say, kinetic, harked back to comics. And of course, we're already seeing that change in style as to how they're doing it as well. In terms of music and feel and tone and look, as we move, from World War II into space.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Ray.
Thank you so much, Ray. Continuing on over on Facebook, Dan Lee had this to say, I absolutely loved it. And if Marvel wanted to do a do-over and start all the Avengers movie with Captain Carter, that would be super.
Mm-hmm. More Haley Atwell.
Yeah, we're right there with you. And there's been rumors, just going to put that out there, that maybe who knows what happens. Yes, people are definitely interested in a live-action Captain Carter. That is all I've heard.
Or just give us Agent Carter season 3. I don't care as long as we get Haley Atwell back as Peggy Carter. There we go.
Yes, 100%. Rounding out our feedback on Facebook from Alan Thomas, who had this to say, I found this just okay. Not terrible, but not great. So like 3 Union Jack shields out of 5, I guess. I was really excited for this season, as I used to love the comic. I hope we get more dramatically different scenario in future episodes, and also featuring characters I like better than these. The main selling point for this retelling of the first Cap movie, for my money, was the girl power aspect, which did make me excited to watch it with my 11-year-old daughter. But then they had Steve Rogers still be the most powerful hero in the story. Come on, people! Can someone explain to me how Peggy staying in the room meant Steve gets shot? Thank you so much, Alan. Okay, so hopefully by now you're listening to this and you've watched episode 2 and you're enjoying, because that is what you wanted. This is the more dramatic scenarios unfolding. In terms of how Peggy staying in the room, it meant that everyone else stayed in the room. It meant that the initial bombs that we saw in the original film, the OG film, were placed in different places, and also the bomber got nervous and started moving forward. Peggy shouted, and then the other bomber got spooked and went and tried to shoot Steve, and that's how he got shot.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. Steve jumps out because he's heroic. He jumps out to try and save the day and gets shot in that moment as well. As for Steve Rogers being the most powerful hero in the story, I don't think he is. He happens to have a Tesseract in an Iron Man suit, but he gets caught and it gets taken out of him. So it gets taken away from him. So the most powerful hero in this story absolutely is Captain Carter.
Yeah, I think so too. I think he's certainly put in a position of power through the Hydra Stomper and through Howard Starks, but I think ultimately it shows the weakness of this prototype Iron Man suit working off the Tesseract technology that he's still captured by the Red Skull, and ultimately without the suit, if something goes wrong or the Tesseract power is taken away, then it is still young Steve Rogers with twinkified rather than jockeyfied, I guess, ultimately in the
Okay, never heard Steve Rogers being called twinkified versus
he's a twink rather than a jock from the movies, but but I mean, certainly I think, Alan, it was probably the shorthand being used. It was being familiar with, I guess, this story that I would say probably similar to you, that I thought this was a good episode, but it maybe wasn't as elevated as I was expecting. I guess it's my expectation on this, really. Thanks so much for the feedback, Alan.
Absolutely.
Really good to get your thoughts there.
Absolutely. I do love that they replaced the dancing scene effectively with Steve Rogers in Iron Man suit, Captain Carter now all Captain Cartered up, and the two of them doing their dance is their attack on all the tanks. I thought that was great.
Yeah, that was pretty good, actually.
Thanks, Alan. Let's close out the feedback with our voicemail in from Steve Bryan.
Hello, TV Podcast Industries. This is Steve, and this is for the first episode of What If. I can't wait to hear you guys break this one down, especially since you got a preview of it. So I'm not sure when you'll have this this voicemail feedback. I don't know if they're going to do it. Whatever you guys decide to do will be great. I can't wait to listen to your podcast. It's queued up in my player next, and so I don't want to say too much because I'm preparing for my own podcast covering of it. But I absolutely loved it. I really, really enjoyed it. And let's see. The only thing I'll say is it made me want to watch Captain America: First Avenger again. And that's what I'm going to do tonight. All right. Talk to you guys later.
Thanks so much, Steve. I'm really looking forward to hearing your podcast too. I hope you've enjoyed ours, and I hope you enjoyed our discussion about it. But yeah, as we said on our first episode podcast, Captain America: First Avenger is one that I would have watched multiple times, which means John, of course, has to watch it multiple times.
I sure do.
Me. So until we got Civil War, I was watching that over and over again, and then Civil War took over for me. But we just know it so well, and I love that it's used those touch points to kind of allow you to flesh out what wasn't seen on screen in this 30-minute episode. I like that touch.
Yeah, it's a really good movie, First Avenger, Captain America: First Avenger. But similar to you, Steve, as well, for this second episode, I watched that and I just had to go back to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 and Volume 2. And as a result, I've just been just humming away all those great soundtracks, absolutely cracking up with Rocket Raccoon. Just thought it was really, really good. And actually, I think I've got a new appreciation for the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, actually, because there were some moments where I'd forgotten how sort of emotional and touching it was for me. But I really just connected back in with Rocket Raccoon, which was great. And he's also weirdly in the comic that I'm reading at the moment, which is Strange Academy.
Oh, right.
So that was quite good. He popped in to help out at Strange Academy, so I thought that was pretty good, with Groot as well.
Of course.
Cameo, gotta love them.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Thanks everyone for your feedback on episode 1. Hopefully we'll get some feedback in that we'll be able to put into our episode on episode 3. Looking forward to it. John and myself are going on holidays for 2 weeks, so we will have episode 3 out in time when it comes out on Disney Plus next week. But we'll be a little bit later with episode 4. So what we wanted to do in the meantime is send in all your feedback that you possibly want to us. You can email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com, and we'll discuss it all when we get back from holidays.
We're all going on a summer holiday.
Well, yeah, it's kind of a holiday. It's more the fact that we haven't travelled in 2 years.
Exactly.
We're all going on just a holiday.
Yeah. Because it will no doubt be raining like stir rods where we're going, but nonetheless.
Yes, of course it will. But we won't have any major delay of the podcast, just a couple of days on episode 4. So thanks so much for joining us for our podcast about What If. We'll be back next time.
Yeah, please subscribe to the podcast and support us on the podcast catcher of your choice. You can also support us over on patreon.com/TV Podcast Industries or on Buy Me a Coffee at buymeacoffee.com/TVPI. Any support in whichever way you want to provide it is absolutely very much appreciated by us.
Yes. But for now, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. We will speak to you again soon.
Yep. Thanks so much, fellow defenders, for joining us for this week's discussion. I can't wait to chat and discuss episode 3 of What If with you as well. And remember, keep watching, keep listening, and keep defending. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.